Picture the year 610 CE, the Arabian. The peninsula is one of the poorest regions on Earth. The people around you are Bedouin tribes living as nomadic shepherds. They own nothing. They walk barefoot through endless desert. Sand, they sleep in animal skin tents that they pack up and move every few weeks, following water and grazing land. The tallest structures in the entire region are simple stone houses, barely reaching 2 stories. There is no architecture, no engineering tradition, no wealth, no infrastructure. Nothing that would suggest these people or their descendants would ever build anything significant. And in this context, in this environment of extreme poverty and nomadic survival, a man named Muhammad makes a prediction so specific and so implausible that if it failed to come true, it would have destroyed any claim he had to prophethood. He predicts that these exact people, these barefoot, impoverished shepherds with no shoes, no permanent homes, no construction knowledge, will one day compete with each other to build the tallest buildings on Earth. Not just tall buildings, but competing over who can build the tallest, 14 centuries later. If you look at the skyline of Dubai, Riyadh, Mecca, and Jeddah, you are looking at the precise, literal fulfillment of this prophecy. And this is not vague symbolism that we are stretching to fit modern events. This is documented in the most rigorously authenticated Islamic sources with a level of specificity that is impossible to dismiss as coincidence. So let me show you the exact Hadith, the authentication chain, the historical context that made this prediction absurd, and the photographic evidence of its undeniable modern fulfillment. The prophecy comes from one of the most famous hadiths in Islam, where the angel Gabriel came to Prophet Muhammad in human form to test him in front of his companions. Gabriel asked about the signs of the last hour, and the prophet responded by listing several signs. Among them he said, and I am translating directly from the authenticated Arabic text, then you will see the barefoot, naked, destitute shepherds competing in constructing tall buildings. This hadith is recorded in Sahih Muslim, which is recognized by all Islamic scholars as one of the 2 most authentic hadith collections in existence. The chain of narration goes back to Umar ibn al-Khattab, one of the Prophet's closest companions who was physically present during this conversation. And every scholar who has examined this hadith across 14 centuries has authenticated it as absolutely reliable. There is zero scholarly dispute about whether Muhammad actually said these exact words. Now let's understand why this prophecy was impossible to predict through human knowledge. At the time this was said, the Arabian Peninsula had no history of architecture. The Bedouin tribes were among the poorest people on Earth. They had no permanent settlements, no stone buildings, no construction industry. Their entire culture was based on mobility and survival, not permanence and competition. There was absolutely nothing in the economic indicators, the cultural trajectory, or the social structure of these people that would suggest they would ever build anything tall, let alone compete over building height. It would be like someone today predicting that a specific tribe of nomadic herders in the Sahara will, in 100 years, be competing to build the tallest space stations in orbit. Completely absurd from every logical angle. Yet, here's what makes this prophecy undeniable. Fast forward to the 20th century. Oil is discovered under the Arabian desert in 1938. And within one single generation, the descendants of those barefoot Bedouin shepherds transform from extreme poverty to extreme wealth. There are photographs from the 1950s showing Gulf Arabs living in tents with no shoes. And then just 30 years later, their children are building skyscrapers. And what did they do with their newfound wealth? Exactly what was predicted. They began competing to construct the tallest buildings on Earth. The Burj Khalifa in Dubai stands at 828 meters, the tallest building in the world. Built by the United Arab Emirates, whose grandparents were literally barefoot shepherds. The Makkah Clock Tower reaches 601 meters. The Abrajo Bait Complex in Mecca, all built by Saudi Arabia, whose ancestors lived in tents. And right now, the Jeddah Tower is under construction in Saudi Arabia, designed to exceed 1 kilometer in height. And the prophecy did not just predict construction, it predicted competition. And that is exactly what we see. Dubai and Saudi Arabia are literally competing for the title of world's tallest building. News headlines read, Saudi Arabia to build taller than Burj Khalifa. UAE responds with new mega tower project. This is not loose interpretation. This is direct, literal, word for word fulfillment. The people group was specified. Barefoot shepherds. Check. The economic transformation was specified. From destitute to wealthy? Check. The competitive nature was specified. Competing with each other? Check. The architectural ambition was specified. Tall buildings? Check. Every single element documented 1400 years before it occurred. And here is what skeptics cannot explain. If Muhammad was making this up, if he was just guessing, why would he say something so specific and so unlikely? Charlatan trying to gain followers would make vague predictions or near-term predictions that people could witness. But Muhammad made a specific, falsifiable, long-term prediction that put his credibility on the line for 14 centuries. He could have easily been proven wrong if Arabia remained poor. If the Bedouins never built anything. If skyscrapers were invented but built by different people. But instead we are living in the generation that is watching this prophecy unfold exactly as described. You can literally book a flight to Dubai right now and see the grandchildren of barefoot shepherds standing in front of the Burj Khalifa.
Nice.
And the only question that matters is how did he know? Because an illiterate merchant in 7th century Arabia had no logical way to predict the precise socioeconomic and architectural transformation of a specific group of people 14 centuries into the future, so you are left with only two rational options. Either this was the single luckiest guess in human history against all probability and logic, or Muhammad was receiving information from a source beyond human knowledge. And if you accept the second option, then you have to ask yourself what else he said that might be true, because this is not the only prophecy that came.
It's true.
This is just the most photographically undeniable one. So before you click away, ask yourself honestly, if someone could predict the future with this precision, what does that say about everything else they claimed? And if you want to see more prophecies with full authentication and modern evidence, subscribe, because every video will present the Hadith, scholars who verified it, and the proof that it is happening exactly as foretold.